God's children are not for sale. This quote stuck with me after watching the movie by Angel Studios titled The Sound of Freedom. This movie helped me find newfound purpose and set new goals in my life. It also informed me on the atrocities of child trafficking. Today, I'm going to discuss why you should watch the movie The Sound of Freedom. We will begin by talking about the prevalence and atrocities of child trafficking. Then we will discuss a man that has battled child trafficking throughout the world. And then I will talk about a way that you can inform yourself and others on the atrocities of child trafficking. To begin, we're going to talk about the prevalence and horrors of child trafficking. The FBI has a lot of experience with this. In 2022, the FBI held an operation titled Cross Country. During this 2-week operation, the FBI identified and located 84 minor victims of child trafficking, 34 of which were missing children, and the youngest being only 11 years old. The FBI Special Agent Eric Campbell talks about his experiences in the unit, Violent Crimes Against Children. He quotes, "After you've been doing this a while, you think you've seen it all, and then you get a new case." He continues to discuss a case of a 28-year-old woman in Arizona who was emailing her husband, who was already imprisoned for child pornography. Eric even says that she attempted to sneak a child into this prison. The Department of Justice report to Congress in 2023 titled Nation's Strategy for Child Exploitation Prevention and Interdiction states a lot of shocking statistics. It says, since the creation of the Protect Our Children Act in 2009 to 2021, the number of victims of child sexual abuse material rose from 2,172 to 19,100 in 2002. From 2009 to 2022. Another shocking statistic is from the cyber line. The cyber tip line is the place where child pornography is reported to. So, from 2012 to 2021, the amount of child pornography reports went from 415,650 to over 29 million. So, from 2012 to 2021, it doubled or nearly doubled the amount of reports. But in 2016, it not only doubled, it quadrupled. I know it's depressing to talk about these statistics. While doing this research, it brought me to tears multiple times. But there is hope. And one form of this hope is through a man named Tim Ballard. Tim Ballard worked for Homeland Security for a decade. In his time in Homeland Security, he was a part of the ICAC, which is the Internet Crime Against Children unit. In this unit, he was an undercover operator. It is said that he worked not only in the United States, but on the national scale, traveling to foreign countries. And in these operations, he would intercept child trafficking units, organizations, and he would dismantle them, saving children from sex slavery and exploitation. But his career in child trafficking didn't only end here. Him and other government operators joined together and created the underground railroad operation. This private organization worked in international operations. They worked with domestic law enforcement, and they worked to help victims with aftercare. And during a meeting with President Donald Trump, Tim Ballard shares a very moving story, and I'm about to share that with you guys.
sex trafficking cases. And I can tell you, you're exactly right. One little girl I can tell you about, in fact, I introduced this little girl to Miss Trump during a private briefing. This little girl was kidnapped in Central America, 11 years old, groomed for 2 years, with the intent of getting her ready to come to America. Why? Because we are the highest consuming nation of child pornography. We are the clientele that's the big money. They brought this little girl through a part of the southern border where there was no wall, easily got her to New York City, and this is hard to hear, but this is the truth, and everyone needs to hear this. This little girl, and this is a very typical, for money every day, 30 to 40 times a day. If that's not a crisis, if that's not an emergency, I don't know.
I'm sorry for having to share that with you guys, but it needed to be said. Benjamin Franklin once said, "An investment in knowledge pays the best interest." There cannot be change without awareness, and one of the best ways to get aware of child trafficking is by seeing the movie The Sound of Freedom, because it's not only informational, it's also entertaining and emotional. CNBC speaks very highly about the movie The Sound of Freedom. It talks about how it gained $150 million in domestic ticket sales, which is more than both the new Indiana Jones movie and the new Mission Impossible movie. And this is also, well, it was only shared in 2,600 theaters compared to the 4,000 theaters that both Indiana Jones and Mission Impossible were displayed in. The last thing I want to talk about is the fact that people do not want you to see this movie, and that is clear after doing research. Rolling Stone states that The Sound of Freedom is a superhero movie for dads with brainworms. And then CNN talks about the star of the movie, who is Jim Caviezel, saying that he has a history of pushing QAnon conspiracy theory. Washington Post also speaks on The Sound of Freedom, saying Sound of Freedom is a box office hit whose stars embrace QAnon conspiracies. This isn't the only way that they've tried to stop you from seeing this movie. Also, there have been reports, you've probably seen it on TikTok, of people at movie theaters experiencing very weird things, like the air conditioning being shut down, or the movies. My personal experience when I was at the movies, our movie theaters seats wouldn't recline. None of them did. Not mine or any of my friends. One of the latest ones 3 weeks ago that the News Weekly talks about is this lady reporting that during the end of The Sound of Freedom, there was an emergency evacuation towards the end, and they weren't allowed to go in and finish the movie. So in the end, God's children are not for sale, and child trafficking is more prominent now than it ever has been. But luckily, there are people trying to prevent this, and I believe it is our job as citizens to do our best to help these people by being informed and spreading the awareness. Thank you.